Your sister's wedding is the family's priority right now. We won't be able to attend yours. My mom said with authority. No apology. No explanation. No hesitation. Just a quiet declaration, like a door being shut carefully so it wouldn't make noise. This happened when I was typing the final name into our guest spreadsheet when my phone vibrated beside the laptop. The screen lit up with my mother's name, and suddenly, something in my chest tightened before I could even open the message. I stared at it for a long moment, then typed back 2 words. That's fine. I didn't argue. I didn't ask questions. I closed the laptop and let the silence settle. I told myself I shouldn't be surprised. This wasn't new. It was just the clearest version of something I'd known my entire life. Growing up, our house looked warm from the outside. Holiday cards with coordinated outfits. Birthday cakes photographed at perfect angles. Smiles wide enough to convince anyone that love lived in every corner. But inside, there was a pattern. Every milestone, every celebration, somehow curved back toward my younger sister, Claire. She was the center. I was the adjustment. If something needed balancing, it was always me who shifted. My parents never said it outright. They didn't need to. My mother's face softened when Claire spoke. My father's voice grew louder when he talked about her achievements. When I brought home academic awards or acceptance letters, they nodded, pleased but distracted, already waiting for the next update about her. You're so self-sufficient, Anna, my mom used to say. Claire just needs more support. That sentence followed me for years, shaping the way I learned to disappear politely. There's an old photo album in my parents' living room that tells the story better than memory ever could. Page after page of Claire in dance costumes, Claire at birthdays, Claire laughing in staged candids. I appear once or twice, usually half hidden or standing slightly out of frame. When I was 16, I noticed one photo where I clearly remembered standing beside her. In the printed version, my shoulder was visible, but my face was gone. Cropped away. My mom said it made the picture cleaner. I nodded and stopped expecting to be included. My grandmother noticed, though. She always did. She'd squeeze my hand under the table at family dinners and whisper that not everything shiny was solid. My cousin Megan noticed too. She was the one who remembered my birthdays when my parents forgot. But favoritism doesn't arrive as a single moment. It leaks in slowly, until silence feels safer than speaking. By adulthood, we all understood the unspoken rules. So when Claire announced her wedding date, scheduled suspiciously close to mine, no one questioned it. When my mother suggested the family would focus energy where it was most needed, no one defended me. And when the text finally came, choosing her wedding over mine without even a conversation, it didn't shock me. It clarified something. I had spent my entire life being flexible so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. 2 days later, Claire called like nothing had happened. Her voice was bright, rehearsed. She told me her venue had opened up unexpectedly. Same weekend as mine, but different coast, so it shouldn't matter. She said it felt like destiny, laughed softly, and waited for my approval. I congratulated her. She thanked me for being understanding. She always did. Being reasonable was my role. That night, my mother called. Her tone was careful, the one she used when she wanted something from me without admitting it. She explained logistics, families, expectations. She asked if I could move my date. She reminded me how independent I was. I asked her if she remembered promising she'd be there. She sighed like I was making things difficult. It wasn't about choosing sides, she said. It was about convenience. Later, I called my father. He told me Claire would take it personally if they didn't attend her wedding. He reminded me I was strong. I hung up before my voice broke. I sat alone in my apartment, lights off, listening to the refrigerator hum and the clock tick past midnight. My engagement ring caught the dim light and scattered it across the wall. That's when something shifted. I realized my family's cruelty had never been loud. It was quiet, strategic. Omission disguised as peace. I didn't cry. Instead, I opened my laptop and clicked a bookmark I'd saved months earlier. A stone villa outside Florence, surrounded by olive trees and low hills. I'd saved it as a fantasy. Something beautiful but impractical. That night, it felt like a decision. If they wouldn't show up for me, I would build something they couldn't erase. I booked the flight the next morning. I didn't announce it. I didn't explain. I packed quietly and left. When the plane descended over Tuscany, the light looked different. Softer. Less demanding. I drove winding roads past cypress trees until I reached the villa. It was older than the photos suggested, weathered and warm, like it had been waiting. The caretaker handed me the keys and said the house liked people who listened. Inside, the rooms smelled of stone and time. I walked slowly, touching the walls, imagining laughter filling the empty spaces. This wasn't an escape. It was a reset. Over the next weeks, I hired local craftsmen. I learned their names. I listened to their stories. We restored the place piece by piece. Every beam repaired felt like something mended inside me. In the evenings, I sat on the terrace sketching ideas for a ceremony that felt honest. There would be one long table under the trees. No hierarchy. No special seating. Just people who chose to be there. When I told my fiancé, Daniel, what I was planning, he didn't question it. He said peace mattered more than tradition. I believed him. I sent new invitations. Simple ones. Handwritten. The first went to Megan. Then to my grandmother. Replies came quickly. Supportive. Certain. They didn't ask for explanations. They just showed up. Flights booked. Plans made. A group message formed on its own, filled with quiet excitement. For the first time, I didn't feel like an afterthought. Somewhere between the sound of hammers and the smell of fresh plaster, I understood this wasn't revenge. It was clarity. I wasn't taking anything from them. I was choosing myself. And while my family prepared for a wedding, they believed mattered more. Something else was already unfolding beneath the olive trees. Something real. Something they never thought to ask about. The morning of the weddings arrived quietly, as if the world itself didn't feel the need to announce anything. In Boston, the day began with hurried footsteps, clipped voices, and the constant rustle of garment bags. In Tuscany, it began with birdsong and warm air drifting through open windows. I woke before sunrise, not from nerves, but from a calm I'd never felt on any important day before. Light spilled across the stone floor as I stepped outside, barefoot, letting the cool ground remind me where I was. Back home, my mother stood in a hotel corridor adjusting the clasp on her necklace for the third time. She smiled at passing relatives, though her eyes kept darting toward the elevator. Chairs in the ceremony hall sat neatly arranged, but several near the front remained empty. My father checked his phone again, then slipped it into his pocket. Maybe they're running late, he said, more to himself than anyone else. No one responded. Claire sat in front of a mirror, veil perfectly placed, makeup flawless. Still, she kept asking where Grandma was. Someone said traffic was unpredictable. Another said flights had been delayed. The photographer suggested rearranging guests to make the room feel fuller. Claire laughed too loudly and agreed, but her hands trembled around her bouquet. Across the ocean, the villa glowed under the early sun. Lanterns hung from the vines, unlit but waiting. The long table had been set the night before, clay plates aligned carefully, wildflowers scattered in soft defiance of symmetry. Megan's children ran between the trees, their laughter echoing without being hushed. My grandmother sat in the front row holding a small olive branch she'd picked herself. For peace, she told me, smiling like she knew something the rest of the world didn't. My dress wasn't extravagant. It didn't sparkle or demand attention. It moved with me, light and honest. A local woman named Sophia pinned olive leaves into my hair and told me they were symbols of truth. When I stepped outside, the breeze lifted the veil gently, not away from me, but forward as if urging me on. Faces turned. Smiles met mine without expectation or condition. There was no orchestra. Just Daniel's quiet breath beside me and the sound of leaves shifting overhead. When I walked down the aisle, I thought about every time I'd been told to wait, to adjust, to understand. Every moment I'd made myself smaller so others could shine. Here, there was no shrinking. Every seat was filled by choice. The officiant spoke simply, about presence, about commitment that wasn't loud but consistent. When it was my turn to speak, the words came without effort. I spoke to the people who had shown up, to the ones who hadn't needed convincing, to the love that didn't require negotiation. My grandmother nodded, eyes bright. Megan reached for my hand. I felt anchored in a way I never had before. When the ceremony ended, applause rose gently, like a shared breath. Food followed laughter. Wine followed stories. Lanterns were lit as the sky deepened into gold and violet. It wasn't polished. It wasn't perfect. It was alive. Halfway through dinner, Megan caught my eye and lifted her phone. Messages were already moving. Photos shared. Smiles captured under lantern light. The villa, glowing. In Boston, those same images appeared on a screen between makeup touch-ups and forced laughter. A bridesmaid gasped softly. "Isn't that your family?" she asked. Claire frowned and took the phone. There it was. My grandmother. Megan's kids. The long table beneath the trees. Me, standing beside Daniel, framed by light. The room shifted. Whispers rippled outward. Someone asked why so many relatives were missing. My mother leaned closer, her face paling. My father stared at the image longer than anyone else. "That's Anna's wedding," he said quietly. No one contradicted him. The band kept playing, but the music sounded hollow. When a toast was made to family unity, glasses were lifted slowly, without enthusiasm. Claire's smile faltered, then reset, brittle and bright. But the room knew something had changed. The absence was suddenly visible. Back in Tuscany, my grandmother squeezed my hand. "This," she said, gesturing around us, "is what family looks like when no one is pretending." The night stretched on with dancing, bare feet on stone, voices blending into something warm and unguarded. At one point, I stepped away toward the olive grove. The villa glowed behind me, full of life. My phone buzzed on the table I'd left. Missed calls. Messages. I didn't open them. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the trees as I sat with coffee, listening to the quiet return. I checked my phone then. A voicemail from my mother. Her voice was tight, trembling with frustration. She asked how I could embarrass them. Said people were talking. Said they looked uncaring. I listened once. Then again. Then deleted it. They thought embarrassment was the punishment. It wasn't. The consequence was realizing they no longer had a role in my choices. The photos continued to circulate online, shared without commentary. My grandmother's olive branch became an unspoken symbol. No explanations needed. As the days passed, Tuscany settled back into stillness. The table was cleared. Lanterns taken down. But the warmth lingered. One morning, while packing away the last ribbon, my phone rang again. My mother. I hesitated, then answered. Her voice wavered between defense and accusation. She said I'd made them look cruel. That I'd always been distant. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, I told her calmly that I hadn't done anything to them. I'd simply stopped compensating for what they refused to see. There was silence. Then my grandmother's voice joined the call, steady and unmistakable. She told my mother that asking someone to disappear for the sake of peace was not kindness. It was control. The call ended without argument. I stepped outside afterward, breathing in the air, watching the olive trees sway. Sophia appeared with bread and smiled. "Everything good?" she asked. I nodded. It was. That evening, I set one final place at the long table. I tied a green ribbon around the chair and whispered a quiet dedication to the version of myself who had waited so long to be chosen. The wind moved through the vines like an answer. I didn't feel forgotten anymore. I felt complete. Love doesn't beg. It shows up. And sometimes, the quietest revenge isn't proving your worth. It's building a life so full that you no longer need permission to live it. Moral lessons. Life doesn't always hand us the recognition or support we deserve, and sometimes the people we expect to show up for us won't. But that doesn't define our worth. True strength comes from quietly building your own path, creating spaces where you are seen, valued, and celebrated. Don't wait for permission to live fully, and don't let others' neglect make you small. Focus on what you can control. Your choices, your growth, and your peace. By investing in yourself and standing firm in your truth, you not only honor your own life, but you also inspire others to do the same. Remember, sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply living a life so full that no one else's approval is needed.